I'll first show you the page where you can sign up as a beta tester. I think this URL will also be put in a presentation later by Sam, but I wanted just to share already. This is the page where you have to sign up, and then you get credentials to log in. That's the very first step, of course. Otherwise, you can't get started. And with these credentials, you can go to the datalab.dive.edito.eu, and this is actually the data lab itself. So you have a very general home page here. You have trainings and tutorials. So here you can see how to use the data lab. For instance, if you're interested in contributing, you can just read the page, how to contribute. And it's just the full documentation of how to do that. Certain tutorials or trainings you can also run. And that's something that I will show in a minute. But first about data, you can also explore data. This link will redirect you to a web viewer. It's a very general web viewer. It looks a lot like the EMOTNet one. It's the MyOcean web viewer. You can just visualize all the data that's in the data lake itself. You can also choose for the integrate data. That's another type of web viewer. It looks like this one. It's very similar. But this one is organized according to the stack catalog. So that's how the data is in a catalog organized. It's the same categories that you will find there. So it's just another way of viewing data that's available there. More about that later by Sam. If I go back to the data lab, and there's of course also an about page. It's just a EDITO website. That's not very interesting. But you also have a documentation page. And that is really a full-on text document with several pages on how to use the data lab. And lastly, there's also support. I will not click the button because that will just straight open the email. But if you click this link, you can contact the developers, and they are quite responsive. I've been sending them a lot of emails, maybe even spamming them, but there has always been a good cooperation. So that's really worth it. If you have an issue, you can always contact the people behind the data lab. Now, in the data lab itself, when you log in, so now I'm already logged in, you have several tabs here on the left-hand side. Maybe one of the more important ones is My Accounts, because here you can have a Git integration. So you can set up your GitHub page or your GitLab account to have a connection there. You can also connect it to the Copernicus Marine Store. Myself, I don't really use that, so I've not been working with that. There's also HPC integration, more about that in a session later. And you can also connect to storage. That's an important one, because here you have several keys, and these allow you to store data in the cloud of EDITO itself. These keys are quite long and they are really meaningless. I can show them because they expire every 24 hours, and I suppose no one will be interested in getting my data anyway. But that is how it works. And depending on which scripting language you use, there are several examples here how you can interact with your data. So for instance, if you are working with Python, you have S3FS client library. And then you have here a snippet of code that you can use. The keys are in there. And with this snippet of code, you can upload or download your data from the data lake. And we also have clients for R. So you can really choose which one suits you best and integrate this in your script, in your doc, wherever you want. And this connects you to my files. So that's your private storage. That's what's here. I have several of these here. For instance, for Marco Polo, another project, I created some files here for a viewer. These are ZAR files, so that's a typical format for analysis-ready cloud-optimized data. So if I click further, you will see that there are several levels in this ZAR file. This is a raster data set. And if I copy this URL and I apply it correct with code snippet that I showed you earlier, then I can read this data or download this data or modify whatever I like. So that's the My Files. That's quite interesting. You can just store your data there, publish your data there, retrieve it in your doc, whatever you want. Then let's go back to the trainings and tutorials. That's the first thing you can use. So for instance, this one of the stack that we created. This shows you how to interact with this catalog of data. You can read it, and this will redirect you to the GitHub page or another HTML page where it's defined how it works. Or you can also run it. I think this will be interesting for most of the docs, that you can just publish a script. When you run this, it will start a container. In this case, it will be a Python container. And in that container, it will pull the code that I have here. So I have this code here. This could be your doc or your pipeline or your species distribution model. And when I click on this link to start this tutorial or this training, it will start my Python container. It will pull my code that I have stored in whatever kind of GitHub page I have, and it will run it here in the cloud. So you don't need to run it on your local PC. It's just here, and it's available for everyone, so everyone can use it. I need to copy my passwords, click this link, paste the password, log in, and then you get just a very typical IDE, and here is the code. So this is the exact same code that I was showing you earlier on my GitHub page, and I can just run it. So that is actually the very easiest or most basic way of adding your doc or your pipelines to the EDITO data lab. It is the easiest way, but maybe not the most sexy way to say it. It doesn't really offer you a graphical interface. It's just a scripting interface. But there are also applications that allow you to add more advanced applications. And then I need to go back to Data Lab. And that is under the service catalog. And here we have the more advanced applications. So if your doc or pipeline or whatever it is that you're building has a kind of a more advanced interface, you can go here and you can launch whatever it is. How to add your tutorial or your service, that is something that will be shown later on today and tomorrow. But this is just to show you how you can use it. So one of the most basic things here is that you can just start a RStudio container or a VS Code with GPU and so on. But there's also other types of things. Maybe some of you might know them. The Ocean ICU is here. Surumi Markets. I'm not aware of all of these, what they actually mean. Maybe it's the easiest way to show you the one that I created. That's the Habitat Suitability app. So you can launch this one. This will not start an RStudio container, but this is a full-on independent application itself. So once again, this might take some time because we're launching a container in the clouds. And it's very easy because you don't need to install anything. You don't need to download anything. It's just logging in on the platform and running it in the cloud. So no dependency issues or whatever. Just click the link to open it. And then you have this application. So this is a more advanced step than the tutorials or the trainings. Here you have the graphical interface. So it's the same one that I showed earlier during the General Assembly of last year. But here you have the controls. You can do whatever you like. It can be any kind of Docker container actually application that you can upload to the data lab. And finally, there's also one last service that's offered here, and that's the processes. So that's in the process catalog. For instance, the shapefile to ZAR, that's one of the things you can launch. And such a service doesn't really have a graphical interface. So it's not an IDE, it's not an R script or a Python script, or it doesn't have something graphical to show you, but you can launch it and it will ask you to give some input here to configure it. And when you click on launch, it will run something in the background. You will not really see it, but in the end, it will create some data for you that can be stored to wherever you specified it to be stored, or to be downloaded, or to be uploaded to your files. So that's kind of a background service that's there for you. And you can also integrate it in other pipelines and other ducts and so on. So that was in a nutshell how the data lab works.